It's real. It's real. You know the deal. You know the deal. Come on.
Hey, it's Shanté.
And I'm Natalie, and welcome to What's the Deal, a podcast powered by the Northus Firm. At the Northus Firm, we solve people problems, and we have the great pleasure of working with employers all around the world on HR, workplace culture, and DEI strategies. Well, hey.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. We're in conflict talk mode. Our last episode was... Yes. Lord, big trials. They have lots of conflicts. And I mean, it's just conflict central, you know?
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And our last episode, we got really into how to avoid big conflict before it bubbles over, right? The goal is not to avoid all conflict because conflict's inevitable in any relationship. But getting out there and getting yourself prepared for it and not avoiding it is really the name of the game. And today we're going to get into this idea that your workplace culture, people love to say culture, our culture, are they a fit for our culture, right? You see that a lot in workplaces. It's thrown around like this buzzword, but it actually means something, right? And if you're not out ahead of your culture, you might end up with a conflict that requires an investigation, right? And so today we're going to talk about how sort of that overlay between workplace culture and workplace investigations. Can you remind us of a definition of workplace culture?
Sure. I mean, workplace culture in particular is really just about how things get done. So it's like you have the what. It's clear. Typically, it's in a plan somewhere, action plan, strat plan, whatever, project plan, whatever it is.
KPI.
Exactly. We know what we got to do, right? But how we have to do it and how we need to do it is where the culture comes in. And it's really those agreements, the behaviors, the norms. It's the ways in which we do things to accomplish whatever we accomplish. And so it's the aspect of like you can get to a result, but you may have stumbled, may have like scratched your knee, you may have fought somebody. Like getting there might have been rough, but culture is normally the vehicle in which you get there. So this particular episode, it's going to be interesting because I think people often look at these incidents, anything related to these conflicts or these incidents as one-off situations, not really looking at how the culture, it's like the bedding, the foundation of the organization is the breeding ground for these types of conflicts, which ultimately can lead to you coming in and doing these investigations.
Yes. I did a lot of head moving in agreement, like nope and yep and right. That was a violent agreement from my head. But the reason why is that it's very rare, at least the types of investigations that come to us, where it's like a singular moment that led to a complaint. It's very rare. Every once in a while, I'll have, something where it was some catalytic event that like caused like one thing. But even in those one things, it's rarely that one thing, right? So I think it's important for people to keep in mind, if you get a complaint, a written complaint, either through your hotline, somebody emails HR, somebody emails you as a leader, know that it's likely a symptom of something much bigger, right? So when we're thinking about it from the types of things that have been coming across my desk recently, almost all of them have the theme of inaction from a leader when an issue arose, right? Almost all of them. And so when I look at that, like, you're like, okay, well, you have a complaint procedure. You encourage people to raise their concerns. But what is coming up a lot lately is, but nobody's really going to do anything about it, right? Is somebody really going to do something about this? Because this person has been like this for years, right? This is how this person has been. Everybody seems to be okay with it. And so I think when I think about a leader, and one of the questions we've actually both started asking more frequently in assessment context, what do you want your legacy to be as a leader?
Exactly. And is the way in which you're showing up as a leader supporting that? Like, is that getting you to that place? And it's funny because when we do ask that question, they pause, rightfully so, right, to really think about it. But then you can kind of see the little, huh, right, or the little light bulb, like, oh, right, because you have to be intentional about these things, because you as the leader set the tone. And you as a leader are the one who's role modeling how people should be behaving in this organization. How are you addressing things that may come up? How proactive are you in certain instances or not, in order to make sure that things are getting done properly? I think a really interesting stat here is that the EEOC says that retaliation claims make up 50% of workplace complaints. And retaliation, I mean, there can be retaliation peer-to-peer, right? There can be a social retaliation. But a lot of times people are scared that it's the person above them that's going to retaliate against them.
Yeah. And it doesn't surprise me that 50% of the claims that people make at the EEOC are retaliation. And I told clients this when I was actively practicing. The retaliation claims are way harder to defend than the underlying discrimination claims, right? Yeah. So let's start here. Well, what is retaliation? Retaliation is when you take any kind of adverse employment action against someone for engaging in a protected activity. Well, what does that really mean? Everyone is legally permitted to raise a complaint of harassment or discrimination or any other legal violation. You cannot take action against that employee simply because they complained. Mm-hmm. Although that's the natural human reaction I see a lot of times. Oh, that person, their workplace, their performance is terrible. They're terrible with customers. They're terrible. And then I don't have any evidence of that, right? People have a natural inclination to retaliate, right? Mm-hmm. Someone steps on your foot, you're trying to kick them in the back, right? Someone takes your parking space, you're going to take over 2 parking spaces the next time. This is just the natural human emotion. So I don't say that the desire to retaliate, it makes you a terrible person. Like, we all have felt like, oh, you're going to do that to me? I'm going to do this back. That eye for an eye type of thing. Well, guess what? In the workplace, you can't do that. And oftentimes, action is taken against a person close in time to when they complained. So the way the law looks at that is that if you do anything close in time to someone complaining, anything, it's presumed to be a retaliation based on the temporal proximity. Mm-hmm. So, and the fact that people are claiming retaliation means that they're also in a workplace where people aren't okay with the tough feedback, right? Every investigation I've been doing recently, I'm asked, well, who's going to hear what I had to say? Are you going to anonymize this? Is what I'm saying going to be taken directly back? I still have to work here, so I'm going to be careful about what I say to you. That it means that they're already starting from a deficit in being able to share information because they don't believe that candid feedback is valued or protected within the organization. It's not even enough that I always say everyone has a right to participate in an investigation. So that means you can't be retaliated against for talking to me or raising concerns. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter that I say that and I know I don't take it personally because I'm like, I don't work there. I'm a stranger to them. So me telling them they can't be retaliated against is like, okay, lawyer lady. I'm sure that,
Yeah, because what they're speaking to is, again, it's that underlying culture. It's the underlying framework that operating system in the background. They know, they've seen it. They've probably seen somebody else deal with a consequence that wasn't favorable after an investigation, and it could be perceived as retaliation. And so there's just these cultural markers that are there that we need to really kind of, I think, call out as it relates to how they impact these relationships, these conflicts, and what eventually could turn into an investigation. So what else do you see? I mean, we talked about like the leader, right, and how they show up in this. But what as from a cultural perspective, what else is kind of like that breeding ground that creates this possible space for investigations?
Well, the other thing that I heard in an interview I did today was, well, they see the CEO yelling at people, so they're mimicking his style. So people are going to follow the leader. the main leader and usually the CEO, right? Or the ones that are closest in their line of reporting. So if they see their leader behave badly and they see there's no consequence, then it starts to shift to, oh, well, that's the way I'm expected to behave. Like that's what's acceptable here, right? Because they're just watching people. And again, I think it's the thing I'd like to remind folks, people are always watching you. If you're a leader, always. Yeah. They have spreadsheets on your ass. They have patterns. They have this day he said this to this person and then this to this person, because now people are, what we're seeing is employees are working together a lot more on these complaints, right? So there's not usually a lone, on these culture type complaints, it's not usually a lone complainer. Like there may be a person who went and complained, but it's a symptom of something bigger. And in an investigation that had 26 witnesses that had concerns about a CEO, 26, which was insane. And I'm told that there were more than 26, but those, I had to cut it off at some point because it was the same things were being shared. You also end up with a lot of hurt people, right? So people are walking like not happy. And it's like, not that like happiness equates good work. It means that when people are objectively not happy, there's a much greater risk that it's impacting their work. So this sort of like letting toxic behavior be acceptable, letting it proliferate, and letting it infiltrate your organization is the other aspect, another big aspect of where a culture can go wrong. And then you're ending up with these expensive investigations. In terms of thinking about, I mean, you've done some focus groups recently. Like, what were some things that came out of those focus groups that you're like, oh, that's going to turn into an investigation if they don't get out ahead of it? I know you've been very proactive in that situation.
Ooh, a lot of favoritism.
Yes.
A lot of bias. Just people feeling like they're not in the in crowd, or they're not privy to certain things, and certain people are. And then how that you know that they don't still feel hurt. They don't get the opportunities. And so that can, then now some of this turns into like you now have a chip on your shoulder. And now if that's the frame and that's the lens that you're looking at everything through, everything's going to be an issue now. Everything.
So the favoritism thing has now, frankly, become a proxy for bias, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's typically because the favoritism thing comes up a lot in investigations and I know it came up in your recent focus groups, but it comes up in a lot of our focus groups. This perceived favoritism, that leaders have favorites. And I'm an only child, so I can't speak to it on siblings, but I feel like it's that same thing that happens with. I mean, you have a lot of siblings, so I feel like maybe you because. Somebody's Miss Ruby's favorite. Somebody was Mr. Roy's favorite.
100%. And it wasn't me. Let's just say that. I can name the other.
It's usually not the person who's complaining that thinks that they're the one benefiting from it. And the reason why that's important is it goes back to people are always watching you, right? Even if you have a favorite employee, like no one should know that, right? And if we're thinking about what could make someone your favorite employee that won't get you in trouble, they deliver consistently great work, right? But your situation is an interesting one because it deals with a long-term friendship between one of the leaders and the head of the organization. And the long-term friendships always get people in trouble, not because there's a problem with being friends at work, but why does it get people in trouble?
It's the perception that this person has. It's either it's their show, like these two people in cahoots and they make these decisions and it's just them and no one else is involved in the decision making. Or that's a big one actually. That's probably the biggest that I've seen in a couple. It's just access. Like people can perceive that whoever the person is underneath the person in power has this has achieved another level of power or whatever, that there's an imbalance there because of the relationship. So it shows up in all sorts of ways. And it's just, and also inconsistent leadership. So what we heard was like, some people feel like they may get preferential treatment, but on the other side, the person feels like I'm getting I get it worse than every other
This
person because of the
really
relationship.
annoyed me because we hear this a lot. I got hot when I heard this because it's like, because I've had this too, like in investigations where this comes up. And the person who's the supposed beneficiary of the favoritism is like, well, he's harder on me than everybody else because we are friends. If that is what's happening, if you, the leader, think that like me and Shanté are friends, that would be like me being, let me be really hard on Shanté so that no one thinks that our friendship plays a role in anything. Right. That's just as dumb as giving Shanté her way on everything, right? Like, that's dumb. It's dumb, right?
It is.
And also, it's not anything that can be proven.
At all. It's not rooted in anything. It's not rooted in a standard. It's not rooted in, like, again, it's inconsistent because it swings, it's too far. It's too subjective. There's nothing that you can actually, to your point earlier, like, this is how we look at this and approach it. This is how we manage in general, everybody here. And so it's the same application to her as it is to anybody else in this organization. And that has an impact because people, they start to feel some sort of way about it. And it will, and I don't know, how have you seen it come out in actual investigations? I've seen it come up on
the exactly. I was sorry to cut you up, but it was exactly what you were hearing. Oh, well, she's harder on me than she's on everyone else. Mm. Oh, no. Like, I don't, the leader, I don't know. I don't give her any preferential treatment because of da-da-da. And it's like, but then no one can actually tell because my question was, how do you ensure that your friendship does not impact people's perception of your fairness? Or, oh, we just don't. That is not an answer. And so the leader who's accused of favoritism, we just don't. The one who's potentially the beneficiary, oh, she just treats me worse than everybody else. This has happened in 2 HR investigations with 2 different HR departments, right? Mm-hmm. Where instead of being able to stop and say, people perceive a benefit here. People have an issue. And both of these organizations I'm talking about have 3,000 or more employees. So it's not like a super small place where you have to keep people in the same positions. Like in the one organization, it's the 3rd investigation that I've done where this exact relationship is brought up as a problem. Freaking change the reporting lines, guys.
That's it.
Like, do something about it or figure out a better way to talk about how it's not actually having the impact, but really and truly just change the reporting lines. Right. And so the way it shows up is the witnesses to this relationship are always heated. It's always this very strong resentment because in both of the examples that are coming up for me right now, these are also leaders who have worked at these organizations for more than 20 years. Mm. Right. So these are people who, a lot of the witnesses have been there 10, 15 years. So they're just sick and tired of it, right? Especially because it almost always involves people thinking that the beneficiary is not a strong employee. So that they get to have this good job reporting to the head of whatever department, and they don't even have to do all their work. And then the head of the department says, no, but she does a great job. All these things are so great. And it's like, so my gosh, this is like a hamster wheel, right? Just fix it, right? Like,
so what do you see? Like, if this keeps coming up, right? Like, because you said this is what, number 3? You've done like 3 investigations around this same relationship, and the impact that it has.
Oh, that's just that one organization. I'm saying I've done 3.
Yes,
I've had this come up multiple times, but this one organization is 3 times.
So it keeps coming up. What do people do? Like, what would you recommend that people like? This is clearly a thing.
Well, what do we do? I'll tell you it's exactly what I told
them
most recently, both of these organizations where I dealt with this. You need to do a culture audit.
Right.
You cannot solve a culture problem through an investigation, right? The culture problem that may surface during an investigation is primarily an indicator of Do you have a legal violation or a policy violation, right? We don't do investigations to uncover workplace culture issues. We just happen to be workplace culture experts who can do both at the same time, right? We can walk and chew gum. I can interview you about a legal issue and hear, oh, okay, these are all the ticks that are a workplace culture issue. You've got to go dig deeper. Don't take this one investigation being done to say, okay, we're fine now, when there are elements of that come out of that investigation that tell you it's a deeper problem. It's not somebody slapped somebody at work and you're just trying to figure out how the fight started, right? Like, this is usually something a lot deeper. And we're constantly saying, do an assessment, right? Like, the investigation we're doing right now, it would be crazy for us. There's thousands of people in the division where the complaint comes from. We can't go individually interview thousands of people. That's silly. And what I said to the client was, we're going to get a representative sample to understand if there are potential legal or policy violations. But if it really turns out that this is really more of a workplace culture issue, I'm going to recommend you guys pull forward the normal engagement survey you do and do it sooner, right? To really get to the bottom of it. Because it doesn't make sense for an investigator to be trying to uncover your workplace culture issues, right? Like, you gotta do it yourself through an audit.
100%. And it's funny because I feel like a lot of these companies try to short circuit that process through the investigation. And it's like, no, no, you can't, because one, they serve related purposes, right? But different purposes, one being more proactive, one being a little bit more reactive. And so, it's really a matter of, okay,
and just in case you don't know which is which, the audit or assessment is proactive and an investigation, it's reactive.
Right. So how do you recommend making that shift then? If for leaders who want to be proactive and want to go into the audit or assessment type of response to an investigation, how do they do that?
Well, I think it's important to think about the benefit of being proactive, right? Beyond some of what we've talked about, but just something a lot more practical.
Mm-hmm.
When you are asking your HR teams, or if you a culture team, or however you all do it inside your organization, to really focus on an audit, survey, and the like, you get to do that at your pace, at your leisure, right? You get to decide what you're looking at. You get to decide what success looks like. But when an investigation happens, things halt, right?
Yeah.
And in the one I'm wrapping up, they have some really, potentially catastrophic structural issues they need to deal with. But they're like, we can't do anything until you're done, right? We can't say anything that's going to upset people because they're going to think it's retaliation, right? An investigation can shut down in that particular organization because it's smaller. They have like 14 employees. That shuts down the whole place for until this is done. In certain respects, it'll shut down certain types of work until an investigation is done. So when you have an investigation, it stops the world, right? For that moment in time, so that you're understanding what's going on. Sure, you continue to do day-to-day work, but that causes people aren't having the same conversations they would have. They're afraid to, they won't, or their lawyers are saying don't until this is done. You maybe were just about to fire someone, but now they're a witness and now you can't, like, you got to hold back. So that there's all these things that you get sort of hamstrung by when an investigation happens, right? Which is why we try to move quickly when we do them, because having been in-house as an in-house lawyer, and like, I understand how it can shut down stuff that needs to happen, because you gotta understand whether you have a problem, or maybe you've had to put the leader on administrative leave so he or she's not interacting with anyone, or the person who complained, and maybe really important. That happened in an investigation I just wrapped up. She took leave as soon as she filed her complaint because she didn't want to keep interacting with her bosses. It's like, it's a lot more disruptive and potentially destructive to have to do an investigation,
Right.
practically. Right? We've said all the things about why there's a good for your business. And look, it's straightforward. If you're not the person who can decide whether to dig in, go talk to the person who can decide and just push it, right? Mm-hmm. The rest of it we talk about in prior episodes of how to do it, right? And we'll certainly drop links there. But
Right.
this is just like use your voice as a leader
Yeah.
to push for the change, or at least digging into what needs to change and prioritizing it. I don't know how else to tell people. It is so outdated to ignore your workplace culture, because these employees, they have rule books amongst themselves. They know way more about what's happening in your company than you do. And a lot of times we see the conversation stay up here and people arguing, no, that's not going on. I heard this and I heard. Just do it right.
Yeah, get the data. Get the data. Always go back, get the data to figure it out and see and get underneath it, because what's going to happen is one investigation is going to turn into 2. It's going to turn into 3. This is going to turn, I mean, great for us, right? Like, okay, keep giving us business, but guys, let's try another approach.
And we say that, but let's be clear. It is not emotionally easy to sit in these interviews to see people so frustrated about things that were preventable, right? Like, look, sometimes people act up in ways that you never would have expected, and like that happens. But the vast majority of what we deal with is stuff that was preventable. And so the reason why I'm passionate about it is, like, hire me for something that wasn't preventable. But like, to have to keep getting hired because you're not listening is challenging. I mean, we're going to do it. Let's be clear. All right. So what this episode really gets at is, once you're at a point of needing to do an investigation, rarely is it off of one thing. It is usually a symptom of a much bigger issue, and usually a symptom of a much bigger issue where people have actually given you feedback on it and nothing's been done about the feedback. That's number 1. Number 2, your culture is not a buzzword, right? So don't fluff up, hey, we have this kind of workplace culture, if it's not how you are actually operating. Because as Shanté shared at the beginning, culture is how you do things. And lastly, go audit your culture. Make sure people are showing up in the ways you're expecting, that work is getting done how you expect it to get done, right? So that you understand that things match. And then when you're in that audit, you're going to catch things about whether your policies are being applied consistently and the like. And while this wasn't sort of an official point, just understand people are always watching you and how you operate as a leader. You are on camera, whether you think you are or not, every minute of your workday. So also come back to yourself, your own self-awareness. How are you showing up? How are you evolving your management practices with the times? How are you keeping up with workplace trends, not only in your workplace, but generally? And what do you want your legacy to be as a leader? Do you want it to be someone who was unfair, yelled at people, exhibited favoritism and bias? Or do you want it to be as someone who helped move this company from one phase to another phase with the work you did and the way you led? We'll be back. You can find us on all the channels, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, TikTok, LinkedIn, all of it. We love it when you give us feedback on what you want to hear, what you want to learn. And we'll see you soon. Take care.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to What's the Deal, where we break down what it really takes to build accountable, inclusive cultures at work. If you found today's episode helpful, make sure to check out our other videos for more real talk and practical tools on creating workplaces where everyone thrives. We're dropping new content all the time, so don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen or watch. That way, you'll be the first to know when fresh episodes go live. Let's keep the conversation and the change going. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon.